real special guest. The name of our panel discussion is Overcoming the Barriers, the Life of Disabled People from Isolation to Integration. So Adriana, which is Head of Institutional Development from the National Library of Romania, will be your guide today and will moderate this discussion. And I invite all of you, please ask as many questions in the chat for me to be able to come back and ask those questions to your speakers. So without further introduction, Adriana, you have the floor. Please feel free to elaborate.
Thank you very much, Mihai. Hello, everybody. It's my first time moderating a panel discussion, so be kind with me today. Thank you very much for participating in our panel discussion, Overcoming the Barriers from Isolation to Integration. Today, we will discuss an important topic for at least 15% Europe's inhabitants: the integration of people with disability in education and culture, and their full participation in community life. Why did the National Library of Romania choose to discuss this topic? Because we at the National Library strongly believe that if we become more open, more tolerant, and if we show courage, there should be not more than a step from isolation to integration. We also believe that people with disability can play an important role in their community, and it's up to all of us to make it easier for them to access spaces and information. So not only is it is necessary to make spaces and information accessible, but it is also possible. And when I say this, I think at least some reasons or aspects, I don't know. The first one is the social aspect. For people with disability, accessibility is an essential opportunity to actively be involved in community life. This will eliminate any physical or informational inconvenience, and for the first time, people with disabilities can perform the same tasks under similar conditions as non-disabled people. Another aspect is the personal one. And I'm referring here to the unfortunate situation in which a non-disabled person may lose some abilities and end up in need assistive technologies. And if we take into consideration that in Europe, alone around 15% of people have or may have a disability, we conclude that creating accessible spaces, products, and spaces and services, it's more than beneficial. Another reason, another aspect is the technical aspect. Nowadays, new technologies offer unprecedented developed opportunities for everybody, of course, including here people with disability. All new technologies allow the integration of people with different type of disability in education, culture, leisure time, and of course on the labor market. We just need to be aware of these technologies and follow a few principles of making accessible the digital information, and we would already be taken an important step towards integration. Financial aspect. While initially creating accessible products, services, and spaces may seem costs, In the end, by looking at the region between cost and benefit, we realized that the initial investment was more than useful. And finally, the legal aspect. If all the above reasons have not convinced us, we should know that the legislation in force requires us to create a cultural and educational environment accessible for everybody. Because if we have unrestricted access to education and culture, we will have easier access to an independent life, regardless of abilities or disabilities. Today, I have the pleasure to have four guests, four specialists in the accessibility field or professional who understood that normality is not defined by the majority, and that people with disability have many skills, many abilities that the community certainly needs. I will briefly introduce our guest, but of course, we will find the most important information from themselves. First of all, I'd like to introduce you Brian McNeely. Thank you, Brian, to be here with us. Brian is currently studying to receive a master in library science with a focus on digital accessibility within library and archival system. In addition, I have to say that Brian has over 8 years of digital accessibility consulting experience, having worked with hundreds of clients and helped develop best practices and web accessibility standard. Mrs. Angela Repanovic is a professor at Transylvania University in Brașov. She holds a PhD in engineering sciences and another PhD in marketing. She is the president of information literacy section of the Romanian Library Association, and she has coordinated many national and international research projects with applicability, with application in the information system and information literacy. Marian Pădure, its PhD in special psychopedagogy, is research assistant in Babeș-Bolyai University of Cluj. He has a long experience in assisting sight-impaired students in using support technology, assessing accessibility of website, and of course turning learning materials more accessible for sight-impaired students. And finally, Mihai Tomescu is an expert in disability and accessibility field. He was in charge of several workshops related to social protection and management at the University of Bucharest. And he is a recent PhD graduated in sociology. He defended her work 2 days ago. So Mihai, congratulations. And thank you for being with us here. And now let's start the questions. At the beginning,
one moment.
Yes.
We still have a small problem with Mihai, but we try to fix it.
Sorry?
We still have a problem with Mihai,
Oh,
but we'll try in 2 minutes maybe.
okay.
Okay,
Anthony?
guys, I think the discussion can continue, and when Mihai will send the invitation to enter, he will enter the discussion. We have one somebody that is asking us for Marian to mute his microphone because we have a lot of background noise from him. So, Marian, please, could you please turn your microphone when you're speaking? So you can go on, Adriana. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At the beginning, I'd like to ask you, which do you think that are the barriers faced by the disabled people in accessing spaces, services, and information? And I'd like to start with Brian.
Well, thank you for having me, Adriana. I'm glad to be here. So I'll say, for those who don't know me, my background is really in the technical side of accessibility, both primarily within the United States, where I'm based out of Berkeley, California. And so, but increasingly my research is looking at the European Union and what's being done on that side of things. So I think really from a library perspective, what some of the largest issues are around the systems that we choose to use, the systems that we build, and how do we ensure that we comply with kind of the requirements you were talking about from the technical side of things, that can create an accessible environment. Because we know that these environments don't simply exist, they are created by us and our decisions. And so I think it's important, maybe not the most important, but an incredibly important piece is building out these accessible systems with accessibility in mind. I don't know. Angela, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, yes. We continue like this. Okay. From my point of view, there are still barriers in universities. We try to build a specific environment and to integrate people with disabilities. What is, let's say, I am talking about universities because I know the situation from this environment. We still not have, let's say, authority or body to integrate students with disabilities. There are people who, with disabilities, who not have support, let's say, to be integrated. Everybody wants to do this, but we not have, let's say, a body, official body. And now we try to, I am talking about my university, we try to build a center for students with disabilities and where students can ask for help. And the barrier are that we don't know how to do. We don't know how to apply for this, and we don't know how to raise awareness about students and people with disabilities who can offer a lot. And I believe this is the barrier. They don't know how to talk with us. We don't know how to solve the problem. And if we talk and many awareness days and explain how have to do, I believe we can solve the barriers.
Unfortunately, this is a barrier for many public institutions from Romania. Yes, this is true. But we have to make our best to remove this barrier.
To tell you the truth, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, may I talk? I have some minutes or... Okay, a few years ago in my university, it was not discussed about people with disabilities. But I am in a network, international network, and we win a project. It's called Decide. I will put a link to this project, if you agree, in chat. It's a project Erasmus Plus. It is held by University from Limerick Institute of Technology. No, it's held by me, sorry. Limerick Institute of Technology is our partners, University of Crete, German University from Dresden, and Middlesex University. We are 5 European countries, and we want to build Center for Disabilities and teach professors how to deal with students with disabilities in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. And when I started this project, I was thinking, oh my God, and I am the leader, the project leader. When I started this project, it was, how to show what is in my university. I am project leader. It's supposed to learn and to teach people from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan, and in my university is nothing. And we started to build in my university. And another 2 projects were win in another countries, Georgia, and some in Asia, another 2 projects next year. And now we win a project funded by Ministry of Education. And now we build Center for Disabilities, tutorials for professors in my university. And it was a point start. It was very, how to say, we are very, how to say, very surprised how people and professors from my university starts to collaborate in this and interested and want in the library to build a center for people with disabilities. Also, I teach to medical engineering and optometry. And the students from optometry started to have project diploma in to build medical devices for students with low vision and things like that. So I am thinking people don't know how to do and how to start.
Yes, certainly. In addition to technologies, policies, and the legislation, there is also a need for change in mentality.
Yes,
and,
yes, this is very important.
Tolerance, commitment, courage, and involvement are important ingredients that would turn isolation into integration, of course. So, Marianne, which do you think that are the most important barriers? Marianne, do you hear us? No. Okay.
Marianne, could you please open your mic?
Yes.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. So,
which do you think are the barriers faced by disabled people in Romania?
In Romania or in my university?
Or in your university?
Okay, good. Because we started in 2003 to create accessible material for our students in a Center for Assistive Technology. So I think so in this moment we don't have a barrier in information, but I think so we have a lot of problem with environment accessibility, and this is, I think so it's a general problem that it's happening in Romania. In this moment, we try to manage the information for the blind students, but it still remains a problem also for the university and for the library, because the number of accessible books is too low that the number of printing material that are existing in the library.
Yes, certainly it is a barrier. We don't have sufficient accessible materials for blind students, blind people, and so on.
And also, I want to
Yes.
another thing is because we discuss more about blind here. We have a lot of we have deaf students that we have problem with them because we don't have accessible material for them, and we don't have a sign language interpreter to help them to the classes. We have students with learning disabilities, and we have a lot. And we start each university start to have a lot of students with disability. Unfortunately, there is no statistic of the national level to know how many students with disability there are.
Yes, this is true. Mihai, yes? No. We are going to the second question. How does your institution help in removing this barrier? And please briefly describe the activities or the projects you are involved in. Brian.
Yeah. So also I saw in the chat, someone had commented about Marianne's previous comment around people with other disabilities. I think one of the things that I notice a lot, especially in standards development and sort of things like that, is a focus heavily on people who are blind or low vision. And only increasingly are we starting to see better requirements around things like cognitive accessibility, any sort of person with learning disabilities. And I think that generally gets more traction within the university and library spaces than I think other areas of the world. And I think, so one of the problems that I keep running into is, especially to build off what Marian said about books and access to materials, it's people repeating the same thing over and over again, where you do something once and then someone in another country, in another region, needs to go and make the same work accessible. And how do we stop that duplication? And so a couple of the projects that I've been trying to work on are things like, and as part of this also, kind of expanding our access to what we know is already accessible. How do we make publicly available lists of journal articles, of readings, of course books that are accessible now, so that we don't need to have people tagging the same book 4 times each independently because no one knew or was able to share that copy. And I think that's where things like the Marrakesh Treaty, which should allow for some sharing of books, whether they be ebooks, that sort of thing, specifically for people with disabilities, could be helpful.
Yes. Thank you very much, Brian. Marian, I know that at the Babes University, we have a lot of projects for people with disabilities. So please share your experience with us.
So actually, we have 2 offices for students with disability. One we started in 2003. It's the Center for Assistive Counseling and for Assistive Technology for Students with Visual Impairment. It was specially created to make accessible material for the blind and partial sight students. In 2013, we started a new office, much bigger. It's the Office for Students with Disability. This office it's trying to create accessible material and to create an inclusive education for all students with disability. And I coordinate this office for 3 years. Now it's I have another year. And we have 162 students with disability last year. Of all kinds of disability. Majority are students are blind, partial sight, with mobility problems. We have deaf students, students with learning disabilities, students with emotional problems. For example, for deaf students, we pay services for translating sign languages. To translate the courses and the seminars in sign language. Actually, there is a person who coming with them to the classes. For blind, we try to make the material accessible. We have a lot of projects. We started in 2003. We have a project in 2014, another project in 2015, and we have a lot of collaboration with the Traveling Book Foundation from Focșani. And we have collaboration with other institutes from outside of Romania. And we try to manage everything, all the problems that we find and we discuss and find with the students.
Thank you very much, Marian. Mihai, I found out that you are with us. So it's your turn to answer 2 questions. Okay. Which do you think that are the most important barriers facing people with disability? And of course, how did you help in removing these barriers? And I know that you have a big experience in implementing projects for print disabled people especially, so I need your experience also.
Okay, so I hope you hear me.
Yes.
There are some barriers, but I will refer only to those which are related to education, culture, and issues related to participation to education and culture. I cannot list all the barriers because it's not the timing available here. So the main issue is access to information. Many prospective students and from Romania do not have enough information related to the faculties, the learning available, the services provided by education, and so on. So this is a key issue. So I'm not referring only to the first question, but also to the second one, because we are trying to counteract this kind of issues and to limit this barrier. For example, we have at the University of Bucharest a pilot project right now called Blind Hub, where we aim to provide vocational guidance to prospective students via an online app which we are building right now. So I think that in the next future, we will be able to provide more information, more guidance for prospective students in order that they choose the career pattern they would like to follow in the future. Other issues are related to finances, of course, and this is a key issue related to the educational system. For example, at the national level, we didn't have any programs dedicated to inclusion of students with disabilities in universities. If we refer only to the financing available, which is reflected into the standard cost per student, this does not include technology and other issues, other logistics which a disabled student needs in order to successfully attend the university. Yes, other issues, and I'll refer to them, are related to the culture of the institution, the educational environment. This needs to be transformed in the future because there is still some resistance in terms of integrated, but not, let's say, highlighted in their practices, but rather a resistance in changing the way the courses are taught, the way the materials of the courses are distributed to students, are shared to students, and so on and so forth. So basically, these are the main challenges. Hopefully, we'll be able to overcome them in the future. And another issue I would like to stress is that at the University of Bucharest, we are now we launched a policy on inclusive education for students with disabilities, and this will bring new perspectives into the future related to the integration of students with disabilities, to create friendly environments, working environments, to create accessible environments for all. So I think the future sounds very good in this respect, yet there is still some important steps to overcome.
Thank you, Mihai. And sorry?
No, nothing.
Mrs. Rapanovic, I know that the University of Brasov is quite a young institution in implementing projects for people with disability, but there you are making important steps. So please briefly describe the activities or projects you are involved in.
I told you about DECIDE, that project, Erasmus Plus, and my institution develops this institutional project I put in the chat. It is an institutional win with money from Ministry of Education. And we develop now and implement strategies for inclusion. Now we buy assistive technology and for students with disabilities, and Adriana helped me to buy the new technology for people with low vision and also for people with hearing problems and also for mobility. In my university, everywhere they put ramps for people with physical motor things. Okay, and we want to put courses and teaching and to teach all professors from university how to deal with students with disabilities. For me, it was a big surprise when I started this DECIDE project. I sent a letter to all deans and I asked if they have students with disabilities in their faculties. We have 18 faculties in our university. And the deans didn't know anything. Anyway, they forwarded me to the secretary. And I was astonished because in my faculty, there were most of the people with disability students, and I didn't know. Nobody let me know. They were in my class, but I didn't know, with different, not very visible disabilities. And from now on, I started to present my project. And students came to me, Mrs. Professor, I have this problem, how to deal. So we have to, and we try now in our university to build a dialogue between us and students. And when they come to admission exam, we ask them, and we, let's say, encourage them to tell us what are their problems, and that we build now a center to help them and to do this. This is in my university. We do a lot of steps, but only last 2 years when we started with this project. And I don't know, I hope to be okay.
Unfortunately, this problem is at national level. As Marian said, there are no statistics regarding the students with disabilities in Romania. Marian, how can you describe the impact of the new technologies on the professional and the personal life of people with disability?
It's like if we look now, for example, at the movie Star Trek that we see a couple of years ago, we say it's a SF, science fiction. But in this moment, I think so. We don't have any reason to let someone behind, because we have a lot of technology and a lot of information on how to use it, how to implement it, how to make the education to be inclusive, not on the paper, real inclusive education, especially of the university. And special education department where I work in Cluj, it's involved in a lot of projects about inclusive education, and also to create methodology for classes in our university. In this moment, I think it's very strange, because actually 20 years ago, when I was student, we take notes by using on tape. We're recording on tape. We're going home and translate from the tape on the paper or on the computer. We have old computers in that moment. And we try to go to the school for the blind and ask them if they want to printing in braille for our colleagues who are blind. And also we tried to go to a copy shop that was very small in that moment, to printing in large format. So it was very difficult. In this moment in our university, the students with disability are coming to the classes with computers, but now it's everything online in this moment. And we have the exam on the laptop. We have the papers on the laptop. So I think so in this moment, the technology, it's something normal, in my opinion, for the people with disability. It's not. We cannot say that the technology is expensive, especially if we discuss about a laptop. It's the basic level, yes, to have access to information for the student. A laptop is not very expensive. Sorry, my phone is ringing. Using a mobile phone is not expensive. All what we need to change the mentality of the family of people with disability, actually much more to our colleagues to understand the necessity of technology for people with disability in general.
Okay. Brian, how can you describe the impact of the new technologies? And for you, I have an additional question, because you are coming from USA, and the USA is a model for me. And I'd like to know about your educational system. How are the people with disability received in schools and universities?
Yeah. So for the first question, I mean, I think to Marian's point, I think digital content is a game changer in terms of the normalization of settings that otherwise might have been not thought of as an accessibility setting to just be something that everyone does. The amount of it's far easier to change so much about the digital world than it is to recreate something that existed physically. So to think about what Angela was saying about the ramps and things, it's far easier to get someone to change a couple of lines of code to implement a couple of settings and features to actually create meaningful impact. And the amount of effort that it takes to do those things is so much lower. In terms of how the US educational system is structured, I think it's fairly similar on the whole, where generally speaking, if a student with a disability needs some sort of an accommodation, generally there's a separate office that specifically focuses on basically like disability support services. There's a couple of different names. And so similar to what it sounds like the model is going on in Romania right now, the student would come to them, and then that office would work directly with professors to then say, okay, what are the needs of this individual student? How do we prepare the materials? The professor usually passes the materials off to the office. And then that office is then in charge of converting it to Braille, making sure that there's an accessible digital version, large print, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brian. Mrs. Rapanovic, how would you
I am thinking that technology have a very good impact, helps a lot. Technology is very good nowadays. You can do a lot of things with technology. But from my point of view, in teaching, let's say, I don't know how many professors knows how to use technology for students with disabilities. I put a question in my department about website accessible for people with low vision, and how to do this in standards. And just few people knows about. And I am thinking we have to promote more this information, or how to make a Word document also accessible for students. How to write. It's very easy. There are tutorials. In 5 minutes you find out, but people not know. So to use technology is wonderful. Okay, also on the mobile phone, it's very easy now, but there are people who have to be instructed. And I believe we will go to next question about the library's role. Okay.
And Mihai? Mihai?
Yes.
It's your turn to describe the impact of the new technologies on
Okay.
Our lives.
Technology changed my life, I can say. First time when I used technology, I was about 15 years old. I remember that I had to use this adaptive technology for blind users, screen readers, and my friend from the same conference, which is Marianne, yes, helped me with this kind of stuff. I am not going to enter into details how we managed to install the software, but it was very successful. However, I use this technology and I'm still using it right now. Of course, it has involved. I'm now using also other software and hardware technologies such as readers and a scanner and readers and so on. Yet, I think it has a, let's say, a boosting role for my career, for my educational life. I was able to attend a normal high school due to the technology. I was able to attend 2 universities, to study abroad, and to, let's say, have this kind of educational pattern which I dream at. So due to the technology, I'm not saying that let's say all technologies such as Braille and something and other technology, let's say, is not useful. However, I'm looking at digital technologies, at new hardware and software combinations, and I'm still expecting more from the coming technologies. And hopefully we'll be able to finance this kind of technology also in universities and other educational systems, because this is an issue, a key issue. For example, not many universities can afford this type of technologies. Many of them do barely have financial sums in order to cover their expenses with salaries and with other logistics, and disability and assistive technology is somewhat at the last on the priority list. So hopefully this comes also with an awareness, increase in awareness, but also with the new the financing instruments which should be made available for this kind of initiatives. Uh, and yes, I think this will change a lot the face of the university and also of the other educational institutions in the coming future.
Thank you very much, Mihai. Stay here because the question goes to you. We are facing a strange period. So I'd like to know, how do you think that COVID-19 affected the disabled people in terms of information and education? Mihai.
So 2 days ago, I had my PhD thesis, and I had to present the thesis and to defend it. And it was everything done not online, with a live presence. So I had to wear this mask, and the teachers did it too. Could not invite any people around there. It was a bit strange. We had to adapt, but I think the content was highly appreciated and highly valuable. So, although we do have other issues, other obstacles regarding to this pandemic and the virus, I think the content should be the focus of the way we adapt to this crisis. If we do it online with digital technologies and with platforms, I think this should be accessible, so that all students, all professors are able to log in and to deliver content, high quality content, irrespective if they are blind or they have impairments or so on. And I think this is the key issue in order to how to make this kind of platforms accessible. Other issue is related to how to ensure safety environments, learning environments. Of course, not in all cases you need to go digital, to go online. You can also have contacts with limiting, of course, the with all the precautions. But you need to provide this kind of guidance for students if they are disabled, to know how to take care of them, to embrace these safety regulations, and to be able to perform in these new environments. I think it's a key issue, key challenge. I don't know if this will pass. They'll have some let's say hallmarks for the future. We will be more able to communicate online. We'll be able to develop new skills related to digital technology. For example, in the previous years, I taught this workshop in management for students, for second year students at the university, at the Faculty of Sociology. And I started by creating this group on Facebook, and because I saw that I knew that students keep their phones, their smartphones, always in their hands, not during the classes, but they are when they are in the subway, when they are in buses, when they are on the streets. So I said, why not ask them questions and communicate them also via this channel? And I started to deliver management content within this group, Facebook group, and ask them for questions, irrespective if of course this was not related mainly with the content of the class. And they started to respond very well. They engaged positively in this process. So I think that technology is the new trend. Yes.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Mihai. Mrs. Rapanovic?
If we talk about this COVID period, we started in March to have online courses. It was a plus, if we can say. This online environment, communication. I am surprised that University of Bucharest defends PhD also face-to-face, because I have been in 3 commissions, PhD commission, in the last 2 months, to University of Cluj, to University of Sibiu, and one of my PhD students defense, and everything was online. So I don't know. Everything, all activities were online. We will start from now face-to-face, maybe, if situation will afford. But I think this COVID, let's say, put us in very good communication and use technology in a different way. This is a positive, a plus somehow. To tell you the truth, after the first PhD commission I have been online, it was I was very sad, and it was very dry, we finish, we close the network, and this is not congratulations, not things like that to see people. But after second and third, we are used. It's perfect, not to travel, not to spend a lot of time and things like that. Anyway, for students with disabilities, because we talk about this and people with disabilities, I believe it's a good environment now, somehow, because also the other people started to use a lot. And it's a very good environment to communicate, and for the students. Now, I am thinking if we will have face-to-face courses, because now we have also procedures how to do online courses. We can invite students who can afford to come face-to-face online. And now it's possible to register our courses. It was not able before. Before COVID, not so much. We were obliged to have only face-to-face, not to give exam online and things like that because of fraud and things like that. So it opened a new way, this unfortunately COVID situation. This is my opinion. Okay, takes the good part of the glass. Yes, the full part of the glass.
So thanks to this COVID, we are using technologies better.
More and more people involved.
Yes, and this is true. Brian, how can you describe the situation from USA?
No, I agree completely. I think it has forced a lot of people to think more about these issues, both about people's access to online environments, because previously people could say, well, I can access this physical book. You're physically present in this classroom. And so it really sparks these conversations more than I think we were having them in the past around, okay, well, if you can't log into the environment to view your classroom, that's obviously an issue. And professors can't ignore that when certain students can't get in, can't learn, that sort of thing. One thing that's maybe not directly related to COVID, but I just wanted to kind of pose to everyone in the chat. I know we were talking about access to content, access to materials. I know one thing, I was talking maybe last month with someone from the head of the Estonian Blind Union, and he was talking about one of the major challenges that they have in Estonia is that if you are a blind or low vision, a print disabled user who has access to the National Library, Estonia's National Library for the Blind, your access to books in English is very vast, but your access to books in Estonian is very little. And so for all these people who are blind or low vision or otherwise print disabled who can't speak or read English, or hear, I guess accurately, depending on the exact book type, they pose a huge disadvantage, and then it's a constant struggle to get content made accessibly in Estonian. And I wanted to hear from your perspective how that's going in Romania with Romanian versus English versus other languages.
Marian, help us.
Okay, and we start actually in March to change our philosophy about assist our students. In general, we have a problem with the students that they have problem and they don't try to discuss with us to resolve this problem. It's happening everywhere. I don't know why, but maybe I know. Some of them they try to avoid the label that they have a disability. Okay, it's happening all the time. And our philosophy was to start to communicate with all the students personal. We call them and we ask them what they need, what they are interested, if they want to help them, counseling them online, send accessible material. Our policy, we change our policy. Actually, we don't write this, change it yet, but we prepare also a document in the university about this. Until April, we give accessible material in electronic format only to the blind students. And we change because we have copyright law that don't let us to give accessible material to other students, to other person, only to the students with visual impairment. And we try to change that in our university. And we ask all the students to give them accessible material. For example, for a blind, we give them in electronic format. If they need in Braille format, we send by post. We send them the paper at home. We have two psychologists. We help them in counseling online. We make some of the courses using the sign language interpreter. So we split the screen. On the half of the screen is the text, and the other part it's the sign language. And we still have a problem with students with mobility problem, because it's very difficult for them, for example, to go to a copy shop. But from this autumn, we will offer them to send home if they need it, printing material, and this we will pay, not university, the post. The university will pay also only the material. We make them accessible, but what we send, we will pay, and it's not a problem for us because we don't have many students. So it's very easy. For example, if we send Braille material, it's free to send in Romania by mail post, and we try to send also the material for with the Braille material we send to. We will try to send the material for other students with the same label. We'll be easy.
Thank you, Marian. I've told you the University of Cluj rules. And the last question goes to you first, Marian. How do you see the future for disabled people, and what would be the measure, the most important measure that should be taken?
Well, if we discuss about Romania, it's simple. People with disability, they need to buy new technology, to buy assistive technology. So in this moment, I think so. Mihai will tell us more about a project that will try to pay the pay assistive technology for students with disability in Romania, and I think so will be great if will happening this year, next year. We will see. In this moment, what I see the future, it's very difficult. If we discuss about also the in the context of the pandemic. Sorry, my phone. If we discuss about also the pandemic, it's very difficult to see what's happening in 5 years. When I was students in my first year, the teacher asked me how I see myself in 5 years. In this moment, it's very difficult to discuss about what's happening in 5 years, because all of us we wait to come back to a normal life. Yes, if it's not this pandemic area, I think so. This conference will be on the public library in Bucharest. It's a change. Yes, I think so. We need time. We need time to change our philosophy about how to encourage the people with disability to change their perspective about their life, the perspective about education, about social life, of course, and about the employees. Here will be a huge problem for people with disability. What to do from the distance for the office will be a huge problem in the future, I think so.
Mrs. Repanovic, I need your optimism. How do you see the...
Yes, I wanted to say that my vision is totally different because there are a lot of projects developed now for students with disabilities in many universities, many levels. And what I am thinking, it's very important to raise awareness about these people, how they offer, how much they can offer and things like that, and to move the line to high school. Because if they are integrated from earlier time, they have a chance to come to university, and let's say universities start to be prepared. And also this online, because after COVID period will not start very soon. You are aware about this. Normal life will not be never normal life used to be. Because we have also now procedures to do online, and we will do online because it's much easier, a lot of things. We will not go back. Of course, we need face-to-face, we will do, but half and half. And also the situation, sanitary situation is not good. So 1 year from now on, it will be like this somehow. This is my opinion, but it's not a not optimistic opinion. It's an optimistic that environment, technology will help people with disabilities, because it is much easy to integrate and to have these people, let's say, educated and offer a new chance. This is my opinion. And also, library can have a very important role. Why library not to develop a center for students with disabilities or people with disabilities in public libraries? To offer a center where they can meet, and also to offer technology and things like that. I believe this can be a very good policy for the future, because libraries are from public money. They can obtain technology and everything for the citizen, for the students, and so on. I want to tell you that I have been involved in other two projects, Erasmus Plus projects. One was library for let me see, I will send you the, if you let me, I will send you the link, l'NSSE project. It's called Modernizing Libraries Through Staff Development. And we had two projects, one in Western Balkans and one in Armenia, Moldova, and Belarus. And we developed modules called, these modules were called, let me tell you, because I am here, access to libraries and society for learners with special needs. And we developed these modules that are free online for libraries. And I have been in different universities then, and everybody was very open to develop in library center for students with disabilities. Also in Western Balkans, I am talking about Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, okay, and also in Armenia, Moldova, and Belarus. So I believe we have to start also in Romania, some kind of project, national project, how to involve library and prepare for students with disabilities. Can be in the future. I'm optimist.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Repanovic. Mihai, how do you see the future for disabled people, and which are the most important measures?
The future, I think, yeah, it's brilliant. I think people started to look more toward this diversity issues and the inclusion. I think everybody talks about diversity, inclusion. If we look at universities, their charters include principles related to diversity and guidings related to diversity and inclusion. And this started to be, let's say, embedded into their culture. Of course, there's still a road toward that, a long road toward that. However, we have projects, we have, let's say, pilot projects. Hopefully, these projects will become systemic reforms. Because unless a project is able to produce positive externalities, to produce a positive impact, is going to let's say to have a limited effect. But we are looking forward to make, let's say, systemic reforms from these projects, and to put them into real university policies. And as far as I understood, up to this moment, I can speak about the University of Bucharest is committed to this kind of change process. We are looking all toward the University of Babeș-Bolyai, which has an advance related to this kind of integration. Now I understood that also University of Brașov, if I don't mistake, is still on the good track related to this kind of changes, and they are doing progress in this respect. And what Marian stated at the beginning of his intervention, he said that we look toward the law, a regulation which is now in the parliament, aiming to provide financial incentive for assistive technology for blind persons and visually impaired. So if this will pass, I think this will be a step forward and toward the availability of this kind of technology, because this technology is not cheap. It's expensive, and it needs to be high quality technology. So in order to have, let's say, we don't need a change in the role in terms of the educational system. We also need a game changer in terms of the way we purchase, the way we have finances available to buy this kind of technology, and to make it available to the larger pool of blind people and other sensory impairments. So these are key issues. There are some good initiatives, as I stated. There are commitments toward that. There are changes, of course, and hopefully it will be, let's say, we have more and more students with disabilities in the university. We'll have more and more, let's say, students and attending libraries and reading and so on. So I think we are on the good track, and technology helps us.
Thank you very much, Mihai. And last but not least, I would like to know the point of view of Brian.
Yeah, I think I agree most with Mihai. I think there's a lot of possibility right now. I can see a lot of initiatives that could go really well. Hopefully they will. But I am cautious, I guess, to think about kind of policy and the way things are going generally. This year is the 20th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in the US. And we're still facing an uphill battle to ensure that people with disabilities in the US receive an equitable education with people that don't have disabilities. And I know starting next year, all the requirements for the EU's web accessibility mandate are supposed to come into force, which means that supposedly all public websites and mobile applications are going to be accessible. I think that would be a lovely goal. I have a sneaking suspicion that that won't be the case, but I think that's where it's important in terms of looking forward that we enforce these rules and policies, and that we make them and ensure that we actually do something when they aren't met. I know someone at the very beginning of the session posted that they're from Ireland. The Republic of Ireland, maybe this has changed within the past month or two, but as of a couple months ago, they hadn't even passed a national law around the requirements of the web accessibility mandate. So there really is a long ways to go in terms of actually enforcing and providing kind of the base level requirements that we can see in terms of building policies that we can then create a more equitable and inclusive environment. That being said, I think even in the absence of direct laws or policies, I think that's where it comes down to us as librarians and educators, people who care about access, to make these changes where we can, even in the absence of strict requirements or enforcement. And I think I have faith in us, so that's good.
Thank you very much, Brian. And of course, tolerance, courage, involvement, commitment are the ingredients that would turn isolation to integration, as I said. We are getting to the end, and I'd like to ask Mihai if there are some questions. Please feel free to address.
First, I would like to...
No, Mihai, our volunteer, not...
okay.
By now, there aren't any questions, but we'll wait for them. While we wait for the question, I have one question for Mihai. Because you said something at the beginning of the presentation about a mobile app, and I'm very curious, what does that mobile app do? If you remember at the beginning.
Okay. So basically, the mobile app we are building right now will have two main functions. First, it will act as a video streaming. We'll be able to provide the educational guidance and for prospective students, so that the university will get in contact with visually impaired and blind persons which are logging into the app, and provide them information, live information related to the courses, what they need to attend, what services are available for students with disabilities, and so on. And in the other function of the app is that will act as a mediator for the blind community and employment. So basically, those employers who want to hire students or graduates with disabilities, with visual disabilities, can log in and get in contact with them, and also set up this kind of mediation and interview via distance with them. Of course, we can also discuss what's the benefit. The benefit is that we will have this kind of tool dedicated to visually impaired. On the other hand, it will be used by universities and also by employers. And the third issue is that students with visual disabilities will be able to create video CVs and so on, and to upload it on this kind of app. It will be a hub. As the project calls it, the name of the project, Blind Hub, where we'll meet together disability students, university staff, and specialists, and employment and business owners.
That sounds great.
I cannot give you any pilot on it, any MVP, any minimum viable product information, because we are still developing the terms of reference for the app, and the writing of the code will last about 1 year with all the testing and beta versions and so on, because we need to be highly, let's say, oriented to this app in order to be inclusive, accessible, and not to miss anything which is related to the standards of accessibility.
That's super great. For me, it was very interesting to ask this question, because I also graduated from sociology and social work, and that's why I choose to moderate this discussion. So it's like a big step forward since 10 years ago, since I finished and I graduated, and I see that things are going from better to better. Maybe not the steps that you want them to be as big as you want them, but some things are happening.
But coming back to what Adriana said earlier related to the effects of pandemics, this is an idea which was born within the pandemics. I think in March, when we saw that there's available some financial incentives for that, and we had started to develop a project, and we look closely related to the interaction of students and how this will change the future for them related to the digital participation. So that's why we had this idea with this app and to create it for the future. Of course, we had this financial tool available, but we also had this idea coming out which came out of this crisis. So it's a positive effect.
Just like a recommendation, it was a startup, social economy, and in that startup, who apply for the money for financing have to hire two people with, or one person with disabilities. So it's better to promote this to the people who apply for startup in different fields. Okay, it was social economy. It's called startup. Maybe you know much more about it.
Yes, we look a bit right now at the bigger picture, meaning that we aim to make this available to also all sorts of employers. But of course, we are very happy that startups started to look toward persons with disability, and this is a key issue in terms of how they are going to develop their products in the future. Yes.
Yes.
Super. Guys, since there are any other question, I have one final question, and I would like to start with Adriana, because she was the one that was giving all the questions. So, if there aren't any questions further, this should be the final question for you. So my question is, what have you learned this year about yourself in this crazy year?
To have patience, to be kind, to, I don't know, a lot of lessons, but the most important one was, I don't know, to take the life so how it comes.
Super, thank you. Angela.
Anyway, thank you for invitation to this discussion, and I want to thank and congratulate Adriana for this initiative. She was involved in this. Thank you, Adriana. You are wonderful, wonderful. She is a very important person in our library association, and she is a soul of a lot of events. She organized last year one national conference, almost alone. Okay, I know the truth. And I hope more discussion in this area have to be done and promote in the society. Yes, to raise awareness about this. Okay, thank you.
Brian.
I think this year I've definitely also needed to learn patience. That's been really helpful. Yeah. Between being in California, there were fires weeks ago where we couldn't leave the house because of smoke, and then couldn't see people because of COVID. It's been a year. But I also want to thank Adriana, because only earlier this year I met her for the first time over email. This is actually the first time I've ever seen her in person. And through that, I met all of you and got to participate in this great conversation. So thank you all.
Thank you, Brian.
Brian, for your time and for disponibility on everything. Marianne.
Yes.
The question was, what have you learned this year, in this crazy year? I don't think Marianne is still hearing us. Mihai, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
The question, and then Marianne.
I've learned new games with my boy, who is 3.5 years old.
Super.
Yes, because I had to do a lot of remote work, and then not be able to attend the office. So we had to learn new games. He did not go to kindergarten because they were closed for that time. So we've learned many skills, many new words. Yes, and I've also been online a lot, I can say, and it was a very good time because I managed to finish my thesis. This was the most important thing. While staying at home, 2-3 months and so on, I was able to finish the thesis.
Okay, super. Thank you. Mariana, you are with us?
Yes,
We cannot hear you.
If
Probably
you have the
have-
microphone open.
Open your mic. Marianne? No.
He doesn't.
Can you guys hear me? Please, 1 second through non-verbal communication. We cannot hear you, but we can see the good intention. Yeah.
So once again, I'd like to thank you all for the participation.
Thank you, Adriana.
Yes, thank you also, and I would like
Hi
to
for
congratulate you. Yes.
You have one feedback from Daisy Sandrose is saying thank you for all the presentation, great and inspiring presentations. So congratulations to everybody, and thank you for this panel discussion, which was more than interactive and more than happy for me to know so many things from you guys. And best of luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
And looking
Bye. All the